Are you ready to take that next step in your writing career? Well, even if you're not ready, do it anyway. Writers by nature are kind of a cautious bunch. We tend to overthink every step before we actually take it. When it comes to your writing career, waiting too long can keep you from progressing. So let's talk about the 5 reasons why it's much better to be a risk taker as a writer. In 2015, researchers used MRI scans to scan the brains of people who were risk takers and those who were not. They found that risk takers had more white matter in their brains. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for sending messages back and forth. It seems the more that someone takes risks, the more they learn about various situations and how to act within those situations. They actually grow brain matter as they take risk after risk because they're learning so much. If you're not a risk taker, you're probably more likely to be cautious or to worry that things will not turn out so great. Whereas a risk taker is going to be like, hey, it's going to be great, let's go for it. As we mentioned in number 1, the more you take risks, the more you learn. And sometimes there's no better way to learn than to just jump in and try it. Putting yourself out there and giving something a try is usually the best way to learn whether or not it's going to work for you. Overthinking it just tends to slow you down. All of us worry about failing. This can cause us to hold back or to wait too long to take certain steps in our career. Risk takers, on the other hand, they're used to facing the possibility of failure. So the more that you do that, the more that you realize, you know what, it's okay if you fail. The more often you go through that process, the less that it concerns you. In one study involving over 20,000 interviews, researchers found that people who were more likely to take risks in their lives were more content with how their lives turned out. So let's say you want to be more of a risk taker in your writing career. How do you go about it? First, it's important to remember 2 things. Number 1, it's never going to feel completely comfortable. Particularly if you're a cautious person by nature, it's always going to feel a little bit nerve-wracking to take a risk, whatever that risk might be. So don't wait until you feel like, oh, I'm perfectly fine with this risk, because it's probably never going to happen. Number 2, it's important to take smart risks. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow and go off to write. That's not the kind of risk I'm talking about. So how do you go about taking smart risks? To take smart risks, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. I'm going to take you through an example. First, ask yourself, what could go wrong if I take this risk? Let's say you're thinking of self-publishing a book this year for the very first time. So what could go wrong? Well, you would write all the possibilities down. For example, the cover you choose may not work for your target audience. The book may contain errors by the time you put it out. You may have poor sales or get poor reviews. Or it could be that you have difficulty marketing the book. Once you have your list down of everything that could go wrong, then it's time to put on your problem-solving hat. How can you reduce the odds that these negative outcomes will occur? For example, you could research covers in your genre to make sure that yours is as close to hitting your target market as possible. You can make sure that you have the book well edited so that there aren't errors in it. You can put together a plan for a successful book launch. And you can educate yourself on book marketing so that you have several methods to try. Going through this process helps you reduce the chances that your risk will turn out badly and increase the chances that it will all work out great. The last question you need to ask yourself is, what will happen if I don't take this risk? For example, if you don't self-publish the book, what might happen? Maybe all the work that you've done in this story will never see the light of day and you'll become discouraged. Maybe you'll continue to stagnate as a writer rather than progressing. Or maybe your author business will struggle. Those who are play-it-safers often tend to neglect this step, but it shows you the very real cost of not taking a risk. Often, if you're looking at your writing career as a whole over several years, not taking the risk is a much more damaging option than taking the risk and potentially failing. Once you've gone through this process and you've addressed everything on the list that you created, it's time to decide whether you're going to take that leap. In most cases, it's best to hold your breath and jump and expect that it'll all work out okay. I can tell you from my experience that I've never once regretted a risk I took in service to my writing career. So I encourage you, get out there and try something new. You'll probably be really happy with the outcome.